The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet. And by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Our listeners get 10% off your first month. So give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/FURLONG.
Welcome to the Final Furlong podcast and our Breeders' Cup annual special, and I've assembled a top team. Emmet Kennedy alongside Sky Sports Racing's best presenter. Well, Alex Hammond was unavailable, but the great news is their second best presenter is here. Tim Carroll, international racing expert who has provided us so many winners over the years. And normally on this show, we've got the legend, the Don, Barry Faulkner alongside us. Barry decided to look after his grandkids instead of recording a Breeders' Cup special podcast. What a sellout. But he is the only guest in history to book his own replacement, and what a replacement he got. One of the best American analysts. He writes for the excellent At The Races website, and he's coming to us live from Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup 2024. Paul Quigley, welcome to the Final Furlong.
Good evening, chaps, and just to prove it, there we are.
What a view.
Hopefully no security guard's going to kick me off in a minute because I'm sat in the stands. But it's a beautiful day. It's not too warm, but the sun is shining. What a great place to be alive.
Stunning. I'm not at all jealous looking at that view. Let's move straight to the first race we're going to talk about, which is the Breeders' Cup Classic. It's the race that everybody has been debating and discussing as to how this is all going to play out. City of Troy. Aidan O'Brien went so close to winning the Breeders' Cup Classic with Giants Causeway back in 2000. That was one of his first ever runners at the meeting. His first ever winner came on the dirt in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, so he can train winners on the dirt. 16 runners later in the Classic. Is City of Troy the one, Paul, who is going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic for Aidan? It'll happen, but is this the horse who'll do it?
Purely from a betting point of view, I can't have him on my mind, I'm honest with you. I know Giants Causeway did really well. And the year after Saki, who'd won the Arc, I think, came back on short rest, and that went very good. Both got beaten by Tiz now. And Aidan has not had a run in this race since 2018. Looked like he gave up on the race. It has been a plan for a bit, and everyone will tell you he's by Justify, won the Triple Crown, hands the dirt. But he's turfbred on the other side. He's the Galileo side, isn't he? And I mean, Galileo ran in the Breeders' Cup. The Saki ran second. He did nothing. I just think at the price, there's got to be better bets than that. So I'm squarely against him at the odds. I'll be screaming him home, I'll be honest with you. And I'll be there for the press conference afterwards, asking a daft question, no doubt. But I'll be screaming him home, but I can't have him in my mind.
Yeah, look, we're not getting value here, Tim, and that's the big point. I'm with Paul. I love City of Troy. I'd love to see him win. I've kept the faith with him all season, even after that bomb out in the 2000 Guineas. But 7-4 is just very, very short for a horse whose dam side gives you serious questions. In your opinion and in your expertise, Tim, will he handle the dirt? If so, is he the one to beat?
I think I'm on the same page as you boys. Look, he's got a lovely big stride on him, and I think he's actually got the right run style. The American horses, they're all about speed. They're not so much a stop and go, a turn of foot horse. They're strong gallopers, and he's certainly a strong galloper. But you've got to look at this from a betting perspective. He's 7-4 favourite on his first ever go on dirt up against the best 3-year-old colt in America, and a very good colt from Japan as well, who goes around on the dirt in Japan. So again, a little bit like you guys, okay, I'm happy to get this one wrong. I would love to see it too, because I think it's great to see Aidan and the boys take a horse over there and try to win the big one on dirt. But I just think he takes too much of a chunk out of the market. So it's a no for mine.
Paul, who do you like as the alternative?
Well, I would be against fierceness as well. He's bombed out twice in his career. He did actually win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and there's a stat no horse has ever won that and won the Breeders' Cup Classic the year after. But he's turned it round his form, I must admit, at Saratoga. And it probably will suit him being drawn wide, because I don't think he likes being crowded. But if he gets involved in the fast pace, he could be a pace casualty as well. He will sit handy, but not on the front. I think Arthur's Ride will be the one that goes, whether City of Troy takes him on. I like the Japanese horse, I must admit. I like all three of the Japanese horse, but Forever Young should have won the Kentucky Derby, but got in a scrap with Sierra Leone. Didn't race since a nice comeback win in Japan. I think he'll be sharp, freshened up for this. And I don't mind the other two Japanese horses as well at bigger prices. Ushba Tesoro, who disappointed us last year. He will need some pace to chase down And Dermot Sotogake, if I pronounce that right, I probably botched that one up. He ran second in this race last year. He can throw the odd duffer, and he's a little playboy, I've noticed, in his works. But all three, but Forever Young, I think, for me, would be the one. If speed is favouring, you'll know, because it's about race 8 on the card, then Arthur's Rider's got a chance of outrunning his odds at a big price on the front end. If it's a closers track, Ushba, Tesoro and Sierra Leone are probably the two to take advantage.
That's kind of the problem, though, isn't it? It's not really a closing race. There's been 12 races run over 10 furlongs at Del Mar since they relayed the track 10 years ago. 8 of them have won from the front end. 3 were challenging, were pressing the pace, and only one deep closer has managed to win. So it's going to be pretty difficult for those horses. And I'm really interested in what you had to say about Dermot Sotogake, because I've butchered that pronunciation myself now, as I tend to do. But he was really fancied for the Kentucky Derby. He was really fancied for the Dubai World Cup. It didn't happen for him in either of those. But last year, he didn't have a prep race for the Classic. This year, he has, and he has that potential to improve. Second run after a layoff, and he gets the first-time blinkers.
Yeah, he's interesting. I think he has. He's not impressed the work watchers. I think he threw the jockey the other day. Not that matters particularly. The only thing I'd say about the stats, Emmet, is that a lot of the 12 furlong races at Del Mar in the last 2 years will be small fields. So you don't know, is there 13? Is it 14 for this? So it's a proper full field size for this. Whereas normally when you get like the Pacific Classic or something like that, there might be only 5 or 6 runners.
And just before I go back to Tim, just on fierceness, because I think there's a lot of people who are going to like this horse, and they're going to read that Coolmore have bought the breeding rights to him. Why would they do that if they really think City of Troy or Sierra Leone can win? The big problem with him, in my mind anyway, and please correct me if I'm wrong about this, is from what I can see on the Brisnet form, anytime he's won, it's been slow, steady fractions. The one time he faced a really strong pace was in the Kentucky Derby, and he hated it. He was carried 3 wide that day in a race that had a massive pace collapse. Johnny Velasquez will be a little bit wiser this time, and he's a great jockey. At 4-1, Paul, he doesn't do anything for me.
No, and he might be shorter, I think, over here. I think we're more like 3-1. My advice, if anyone's thinking of back in the City of Troy, is that I think the bookmakers over in England and Ireland will take him on the morning. But I think on the tote over here, I think it'd be more like a 2-1 shot than a 7-4 shot, with fierceness being well backed. I think Sierra Leone doesn't go off double figures in America as well. Okay,
Tim, you've heard what Paul's had to say. What's your overall view on the Classic?
Yeah, look, I'm going the other way. I like fierceness. I thought he was very good in the Travers. That filly beat that day, Torpedo Adder, who is going to go off a very warm favourite in the Distaff. I think she's very good, and he had the others well held on that occasion. I actually think the draw is really good for him in 9 as well. If you have a look at his record, he's faced off against 75 opponents. Only 12 of them have drawn on his outside, so he's quite accustomed to having high draws. And I agree with Paul. He doesn't like to be crowded, and I don't think he will get crowded here. I also agree with Paul that I think that he will definitely go forward, but Arthur's Ride looks the likely leader here, who's drawn a couple of stalls outside him. So I think Arthur's Ride goes across, he follows him across and gets a very nice trailing position. I just want to get back to City of Troy and also the Japanese horse, Forever Young. City of Troy is drawn in 3 on the inside. And I tell you what, he won't want to miss the kick by 3 parts of the length, because he could find himself in a really bad spot. And the other thing about Forever Young, I actually really like him. And again, I agree with Paul. I think he should have won the Derby. I thought his lead-up run in Japan was very good when he won. In fact, if you look at some figures, some people are suggesting that's a career best. But he has got a little bit of a habit to do things a bit silly out of the stalls. He's drawn in 1 here. And again, I'm just going to get back to that point. If he fly jumps like he did in the Derby, or in fact, over in Japan, his last start, he actually jumped well, but then he half stumbled. Not long afterwards, he come out of the gates. He won't want to do that here from stall 1, because again, I just think he could find himself in a bad spot. But look, if he comes out quickly, and some people are saying he's going to be in the second half of the field, I don't think that's the way they'll ride him here. They've kind of tactically, they've been versatile with him in the past. But if he comes out quickly and gets a good spot, I think he's going to run a hell of a race. But his barrier manners just worry me a tad.
I agree with a lot of that. I have couple of things to say. Maybe, listen, it's entirely possible I've bumped my head, suffered a concussion, and completely lost my mind. I would love to see City of Troy win this race. I hope he does. I can sit back, watch him, cheer him on. Maybe I'll do like a €1 patent and he's part of that, and have a bit of fun in that regard. But I'm going to let him run. If he goes and does it, brilliant. We get to see history. I think there's major questions over everything in this race. And
And it's funny enough, at the top of my notes, I put Johnny Nash, there are more questions than answers. For those of a certain era.
It is for that reason that maybe I have completely lost my mind, and maybe Paul's going to get up, close the laptop, and go, get off this show. This clown's lost his mind. Next is available at 66 to 1 with one firm. Now, I don't know how much you can get on, but he should not be that price. He shouldn't be 33s either.
Funny horse in a sense. He was cross-entered, that's what they say in America, for the turf over 1.5 miles, and he has ran well at the turf early in his career before he got good. I'd have took a chance I'd have backed him at the turf at a big price.
Yeah.
Not sure 1.25 miles. It's this real specialist distance what he's been doing, all these 1.5 miles, 1.75 miles races and bossing them. Great. William Cowan's a trainer based in Ohio, as runners at Mahoning Valley, on the tracks that I bet at. So I'd like him to win as well.
Okay, well, that boosts my confidence a little bit. Look, all of the wins are coming at a lower grade and they're coming over further, and I understand that this is not going to be ideal for him. But just play a thought experiment with me for a second. If City of Troy misses the break and doesn't handle the dirt, well, he's not going to be a 7-4 shot when they get to the first turn. If Next breaks well and does what he should do, which is go to the lead, and is leading round the first bend, it'll take a real good one to get past him, and he's no 66 to 1 or 33 to 1 shot. He's not even a 20 to 1 shot if he's leading off that first turn. I like him. I think he can run a big race for us. He might not win, but he could definitely hit the board.
I'm just going to throw a curveball at you, though. Tell me the last horse to win the Breeders' Cup Classic that had never won a Grade 1.
Oh, it's well over 10 years. It might be 19 Dickety-Doo.
Yeah, it's rarely done.
Yeah.
He's good. He's been in cracking form of late, but he has had 23 starts. It's not like he's an unexposed type on the way up.
There's definitely risks attached, but I think at 66s, 33s, let's say the 33s is what's more likely to get. I'll take a risk. All right, final selections for the Classic. I'm going to swing for the fences with Next. I'm almost certainly going to do some kind of bizarre exotic that includes Highland Falls, Next, City of Troy, and I think I'm going to have to put in Forever Young after the bullish notes from both of you. Tim, for you?
Oh, look, I'm going to side with Fierceness, and I'm quite happy to take a reverse forecast Fierceness into Forever Young.
And Paul?
Forever Young for me at the prices, and probably the way to play this race is that I know people don't like dabbling in exotic bets, but I can't see City of Troy finishing second or third, and I can't see Fierceness finishing second or third. So if you're going to back them, if you think, don't back them to be second or third, and say if you're doing Forever Young, then do it with some of the bigger prices because you'll get a massive forecast and tricast. Well, I think both of them will win or nowhere. They certainly can win, but they're probably unlikely to finish second or third.
Well, regular listeners to the Final Furlong podcast will know, and those of you who don't, I'm just going to remind you because it might be the last winner I put up on the show. We landed the trifecta in the Breeders' Cup Turf last year, and it paid.
Must have a tractor.
Oi! That tractor is probably faster than Next. Hey, but look, the exotics can pay. They can pay massive, and they've come off on the podcast before. So let's swing for the fences. Breeders' Cup Classic. I hope City of Troy does it. I really do. It'd be incredible. We'll cheer him on.
Hey, Kennedy. I'm trying to get a bet on with a bookie for the Breeders' Cup, but Betfair are the absolute worst. Do you reckon the old black market thing would be worth a try?
Don't go to the black market. Do you want to lose a kneecap? Also, you couldn't be guaranteed you'll actually get paid out in your winnings. Do not use the black market.
All right, I hadn't thought of that. But listen, what do I do then?
It's simple. Go to jeffbanks.bet, use the promo code FFP500 and get up to £500 refunded as real money after your first month of betting.
Jeff Banks, eh? But is he sound like?
Yes, he's sound. He's an actual independent bookmaker, and his prices are based on opinions, not just whatever the algorithm tells the traders. So it's even more satisfying when you beat him because you were right, he was wrong, and you're taking Jeff Banks' money.
Oh, I like that by beating the old bookie!
jeffbanks.bet, use the promo code FFP500 and get up to £500 refunded after your first month of betting with jeffbanks.bet. Now, can you stop interrupting the podcast and let me get back to the show?
Chalk it down, lad. Get on the old gravy train.
To the Breeders' Cup Turf. This is the race that Aidan O'Brien has won more than any trainer in the history of the Breeders' Cup. The only trainer to win a race 7 times. Can he do it this time? Luxembourg will be the first choice, and he will be allowed to actually run on his merits and not be in there as a pacemaker. He's a 5-1 shot currently with Jeff Banks bet, but the favourite is the winner of this race 2 years ago, Rebels Romance, currently available at 11-4. And I know we've seen him in the mornings. Charlie Appleby's team is pretty strong this year, and he's batting a 500 average. It's extraordinary. 20 runners, 10 winners at the Breeders' Cup. Tim, what is your overall opinion on the turf?
I don't have a strong view from a betting point of view, but I thought Shariah, and I know this is slightly controversial given that he finished third behind August Rodin last year, but I thought he should have won the race last year. If you remember the rider, and I'm not blaming the rider, you could understand why he did it. He was travelling well. He kind of moved him to the outside of coming around the bend to avoid getting caught up. But ironically, he ended up getting tangled up on the outside, and that's exactly where August Rodin came through. So I think Shariah currently at double figures. Look, he's not getting any younger. He's a 6-year-old, but they've looked after him. And he holds a high level of form. For goodness sake, he was a Japanese Derby winner. He was runner-up in a Japan Cup. And I just think at double figures, especially from the 3-gate, I think this race will set up nicely for him. I think he could be a nice little each-way play.
Yeah, I agree. The draw is going to be crucial. Howard was making that point on the show last week from the Triple H podcast. And Shayraz got the good end of the draw. Rebels Romance got the bad end of the draw this time around, Paul. What have you made? Has anything stood out to you in the gallops in the morning? And what's your overall view on the turf?
No. I find it a difficult race. I think Luxembourg is actually in a grade 1 he can actually win rather than them top European grade 1s. I think Rebels Romance has been trained for the race as a light campaign. I agree with Tim with the Japanese horse. It was unlucky in this race last year, finished third. And J-Ruby and Wingspan, progressive 3-year-olds. When I first looked at the race, I was right against Emily Upjohn, and I've changed my mind. The form of that race in France, the first two that beat her ran 1-2 in the Arc, didn't they? And she's had a light campaign. I'm not, she gets Dettori on. I think it'll be Emily Upjohn for me, but it's a race that I'll be minimum stakes in, if I'm honest with you.
It's been really interesting hearing John Gosden talk about the reasons why they're going for this, because Nick Luck was trying to joke with him that, this race is worth more money, that's why you're going for it. But his point is you're not as much of a hostage to the draw over the mile 4 on the turf, and the track configuration and dynamic is going to suit her better than the mile 3 in the Fillies race. So that's really the reason that she's in this. And you're right, the form is there. Like she's finished third to the 2 horses who end up being first and second in the Arc afterwards. She's a major player for sure. Anything else to be keeping a close eye on at a bigger price pool?
No, I suppose the Brian Bain horse, who's a progressive 3-year-old, and I remember him winning on Red Rocks once. Did Dettori ride that?
I think he did.
A few years ago. Yeah. So he'd be one of the bigger prices.
Okay, I'm interested.
I'm going to stick. I'm sticking with Emily Upjohn.
I love Rebels Romance.
Got some bad news. Got some bad news, Emmett. Get this on live TV. They're kicking me out. They want a table for the racing, so I'm gonna migrate to the press room in a minute. But she'll have to do without me. But I am gonna find somewhere to go.
Don't you know who this man is? How dare!
I know. Yeah.
That's okay.
That's the geezer up there who's kicking me out. Can you see him?
How dare you, sir?
The geese is kicking me out.
All right, we'll catch up with you in a second. We might as well just do like live stream footage here as poor old Paul is made to step aside. I'm pretty sure.
I can't believe it. I've got a press badge and everything.
How dare they? Outrageous scenes. Okay, more from Paul live from Del Mar in a second. Just very briefly before we kick on to another race, Tim, Wingspan. I don't doubt that this is an afterthought, but Aidan O'Brien has done this before. Ran in the Arc, then ran on Champions Day, and then came to the Breeders' Cup Turf and sunk an odds-on favourite from the Gosden Yard. She did the same thing a year later, ran in the Arc, ran on Champions Day, and then came to the Breeders' Cup. She didn't race as a 2-year-old. She's improved with every single run, and from what I'm gathering from all the reports and the gallops in the morning, she is absolutely sparkling.
Yeah, I thought she was really interesting. She might be one for sort of people who like to play the exotic. So as we know, Ryan's going to be on the number 1 pick, and I actually thought Luxembourg represented a little bit of value in this. And again, I do think the race will set up very nicely for him from the 3-year-old stall. But she's very much on the way up. Wingspan. She's not one that I'm going to go and back. But as I said a few minutes ago, from a betting perspective, I'm really looking forward to watching the race. But from a betting perspective, it doesn't overly excite me because I just simply because I think it's so open, and you could make a strong argument for a few. You could make a strong argument against The draw for Rebels Romance, I wouldn't say it's terrible because we are talking a mile and a half, and I suppose they rode him from off the pace when he won in Cheltenham, but I don't think it's a great draw either. So it's it's a bit of a, from a betting perspective, it's a bit of a sort of Rubik's Cube type race for mine. But look, I'm happy to sit with Shah. I thought he was very good in this last year. He did finish in behind Rebels Romance, was runner-up to him in Dubai earlier in the year, and he was beaten fair and square on the day. But again, I think this race, with the way they're drawn, I think it's going to set up very differently.
Tell me this, if Romantic Warrior was running in this race, what price would he be?
To be honest with you, I don't think he'd be the favourite. I think he's a very good horse. He's won in 3 countries. He's gone over to Japan and won, but I think he's probably a bit more effective over 10 furlongs. I mean, he won over the mile in Japan, and not that I want to diss the Australian form, but when he won the Cox Plate last year, he had a couple of milers back in second and third, and they're good milers, very good milers, but they are milers. I sound like I'm being negative about him, and I certainly, I'm not. He's a very good horse, and he doesn't tend to sort of win by big margins either. It doesn't matter what you throw him in against. I mean, there's probably 1 or 2 exceptions to that, but he just tends to get the job done. But I don't think he'd be favourite here. I'd want an each-way quote. But I tell you what, you'd love to see a Hong Kong horse over here for the breeders, wouldn't you?
Oh, it'd be amazing. It really would be great. The reason I mentioned that is Luxembourg went real close against him. And he's unbeaten in 3 Group 1s since then. So he's obviously a very, very good horse. Things didn't... I'm not saying for a second that Luxembourg should have won that race, but he was a little bit unlucky with the way the race panned out. And it does prove that he can travel internationally and go and win, because he's disappointed in Dubai. I think the distance of that race wouldn't really have suited him. He's a Group 1 winner 2, 3, 4, and 5. He's a Group 1 winner 3 starts back. He was clearly deployed as a pacemaker in the King George in a race that it says good to firm ground. I don't think it was, and Aidan doesn't think it was. And last time in the Irish Champion Stakes, he's again deployed on the front end. He's not beaten far. And there's no economics. There's no Auguste Rodin. We don't have City of Troy in this race. We don't have Goliath, Calandagan. We're missing all of the top European horses. He's a 5-year-old. He's RPR top rated. He's one of the highest time form rated in the race. And he's got the performance ratings as well. The Brisnet performing ratings are there too. It's Aidan O'Brien in the Breeders' Cup Turf, man. I don't think I can let this horse go at 5-1 with Ryan Moore on board.
Yeah, well, as I said a moment ago, he'd probably would be my second pick. So I certainly wouldn't give you any negatives about him here. It's a really open renewal this year, and I think a lot will depend on... I mean, it's an obvious thing to say, because most races you need a little bit of luck, but sometimes you need more luck than others. And I think this race will probably be won by one that has all the favours in the run. And as I say, he's got a good draw, but then again, I think the Japanese horse is well drawn too. The Japanese horse actually drew in 1 last year, and he's drawn in 3 this year. So I can see the race setting up in a very similar way for him. But yeah, there's very few here. If you threw one up and made a bit of an argument for it, there's very few here that I'd say, nah, can't be having that. No hope. It's just a very open renewal.
Yeah, it won't pay as much this year, but I think the trifecta on Luxembourg, Emily Upjohn, and...
We nailed that, did we not? Last year?
We did. Yeah, we got close to the superfecta.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
That would have paid a bit. Ooh.
Yeah, I might have done the trifecta and not the superfecta, but either way, very, very pleased with that. We got some lovely emails and lovely messages about that one too. So, look, hopefully we'll do something similar again this year. Luxembourg, Sherar, and Emily Upjohn for the trifecta for me. And I think maybe if you wanted to be really ambitious, throw a bit of wingspan in there too. I love Rebels Romance, but I hate the draw.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I hate it, but I think if you spoke to the connections and said you can pull your own marble, I don't think they would have been going for 11. I think you're probably looking somewhere in the middle, aren't you, around that 4, 5, 6 mark. So it just could end up a little bit tricky. But then again, William Buick and Charlie Appleby, I mean, I think is that the last few years he's sent out 7 winners at this meeting, and William Buick has given some of them rides that Lester Piggott, Frankie Dettori, Ryan Moore would be proud of. Yeah. So I definitely think he's a chance, but I don't want to go into this sort of race backing a horse that straight away I'm looking at and think, gee, and I really like him as a horse, especially on that quicker ground. But I don't want to go into this race looking at the horse thinking, oh, you're probably going to need a little bit of luck early here from that draw. Yeah,
I agree. I agree, particularly with the tight turns and the short straight as well at Del Mar. It's all stuff to very much bear in mind. All right, we'll move on to the 11:45, the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile, presented by the PDJF. The betting with Jeff Banks Bet as we record is notable speech, the 2,000 guineas winner for Godolphin, and apparently he's been looking great in the morning gallops as well. 3-1. Ramatuel for the French, 100-30. Porta Fortuna, 7-2. Diego Velasquez, 8-1. And Carl Spackler, probably the best of the Americans, at 10s. Although there has been a lot of positive talk about Geoglyph and the work that he's been doing in the mornings as well. Hopefully we'll get Paul back in a second and we'll be able to hear more from him. But what is your take on the Breeders' Cup Mile, Tim?
I don't know, but I'm prepared to take a fairly short price. Paul might be locked up by now. It is America. Look, this is a race I'm really looking forward to, and I've got a lot of time for notable speech, but I am a little bit concerned about him travelling over there and how he's going to handle the big day. Charlie Appleby said himself before taking him over that he was a little bit concerned about the way he would travel over. Now, apparently he has travelled over well, but I'm just having a look at his profile, and he's only got the two defeats on there. Now, one was in France at his most recent outing at Longchamp, and that was a rain-affected surface. And Charlie Appleby said afterwards he just hasn't gone on the ground, and I'm prepared to buy into that. The other one was at Ascot, when he was a bit disappointing on the big day, and I just kind of wonder, given what I've heard from the connections, whether he's a bit of a handful. And I've been to Del Mar, I've been to the breeders there. The crowd are right on top of you. It's there's going to be. I can't tell you the exact number they get because I don't know what the capacity is there, but it's going to be chock-a-block. It's going to be a loud day. It's going to be a big day. It's going to be very American. And that just kind of concerns me a little bit. Class-wise, definitely the horse to beat. Ground-wise, we'll love that because he goes on top of the ground, so he's going to get all of that. I don't think the draw's neither here nor there from the 6, but if I was backing notable speech, I wouldn't be backing him until the very last moment. I'd be watching the coverage, no matter who you watch. I won't give anyone a plug there, but whoever you watch, I'd be watching it closely, and I'd want to be seeing a horse that looks fairly comfortable in his surrounds. So, given everything I've said, I don't want to put anyone off backing notable speech. I really like him. I waxed lyrical about him after he won the Guineas. That was some performance. But the other thing, I'll just make this point too, that there was a kind of a big deal made of the fact that he went to Kempton for his first 3 runs before he went to the Guineas, and he sort of come off the all-weather. Now, Kempton Park, going out to Kempton in the evening, there's not going to be much of a crowd there. And I'm only having a guess. I don't know, but I'm just going on what Charlie said about travelling him over. I just kind of wonder whether that was on purpose to take him to Kempton because they knew it's going to be nice and quiet and just give him a nice soft introduction, not so much about the opposition. He's obviously very good and could have beaten just about any 3-year-old in those races. But I just wonder whether they were just trying to sort of introduce him to a racetrack and people being around and maybe a little bit of noise very, very softly. So I've got some concerns there about him, but not about his form.
I do have a slight question mark about his form.
Do you?
I do, in that I think if Rizalian is fully race fit, he wins. Now, that might be really harsh of me. City of Troy's blown out, so the favourite's out. Rizalian improves on the back of the run, wins an Irish 2,000 guineas, then comprehensively turns the form around in the St. James's Palace Stakes at Royal Ascot. Then Rizalian, Sharon, Audience are all missing from the Sussex Stakes. Henry Longfellow probably isn't as good anyway, but he gets taken on for the lead by Sonny Boy Liston. Rafe Beckett even goes up to Michael Tabor afterwards and says, "I'm so sorry, that was not our intention." He gets his head blown off. Now, the positive is Factor Cheval is in behind and he comes out and runs a massive race on Champions Day, but that's Factor Cheval on really good ground. And I'm talking about Goodwood good ground, not Dubai good ground where there are cloud seeding and stuff like that. I just wonder, is he really as good as he looked in those races? And look, I'm not underestimating this horse too much because we're talking about Charlie Appleby here. He's won this race for the last 3 years with 3 different horses. I mean, it's just extraordinary. He's obviously talented.
Charlie has said it's the best 3-year-old he's ever taken over there as well. But just getting back to the point you made about his form, I'm not going to argue with that. But then again, you mentioned Rizalian and you mentioned Sharon and 1 or 2 others. Have we got a Rizalian here? Have we got a Sharon here?
Yeah.
I would say no. But look, having said all of that, I'm going to take him on. But because my light's just gone, I'm going to do a poll. If you give me 2 seconds, I can turn that light a bit so it stops flashing. But you'll probably be able to hear me anyway as I go over here. I'm going to take him on, but not from a form perspective. As I said, I think if he turns up and runs to his best, he'll win the race. But I think that the French filly, Ramatuelle, I still swear she should have won the Guineas over here. year.
Oh, my goodness.
I thought it was a hell of a run. I don't want to be too critical of jockeys, but if he could have that over again, he'd love that. He'd be having nightmares about that one. He should have sat at least another 50, maybe another 80, 90 odd yards. And then the coronation didn't really pan out for her at Ascot when Usheen rode her. And it wasn't Usheen's fault. It was obviously a plan from the connections to sort of drop her. It's not like she was out the back, but to ride her back a little bit. And the first half of that race was run slowly. And here you've got a filly that's a little bit suspect over a tough mile, and she's been ridden sort of just in the second half of the field. And I think it's worth noting that the first two sat second and third throughout. There was only three of them in the market. So I thought they got their tactics wrong that day. And then she came out in the foray, and as we know, she scooted up by about 3.5 lengths with plenty in the locker. Now, I know the foray is a 7 furlong race, and I know that there'll be people who'll question her over the mile, but you've got to remember these tight turning tracks in America, they're not like running a mile at somewhere like Ascot. They're really not. She's drawn down on the inside. I don't think she'll lead, but I'd be absolutely shocked if she's not in that first few with the run of the race throughout. So I think last time I had a look, she was around about 5-1. Now, I'm not an each way player. As you know, I backed Shariah at 25-1 straight out last year in the Turf Classic. But I think for the each way player, she could be a bit of a shot to nothing because I think she'll get the run of the race. I think that track will really suit her. She goes on top of the ground. She's got a lot of things in her favour.
I really like Porta Fortuna. I think
beat the hands down at Ascot too.
Yeah, but isn't this is heart over? This is head over heart. You've got to be cold. You got to be cold-blooded about this. As much as I like her, she's more of a grinder. And this track is just not really going to suit her. If this was Santa Anita, she'd be fine. But that's a short run-in. This is going to really play to Remachuel's strengths. Yeah,
and that's what kind of concerns me a little bit as well. This is going to be run very differently to the Coronation. It's a very different track to Ascot. And I know Porta Fortuna had the Prince Filly well and truly beaten there, but as I just alluded to, I don't think the Prince Filly was given the whether it's the best ride. That's not a shot at Usheen. I think the Connections got their tactics wrong that day. But having said that, I think Porta Fortuna goes into this very underrated. She just keeps coming out and winning. She wins Grade 1. She was runner-up at the start of the season, but she's won, 3 Grade 1s on the bounce since. She's a very, very likeable filly. I would have her in the mix myself, but I agree. I think the layout of this track and I think the way this race would be run will suit Remachuel, whereas I think at Ascot it suited Porta Fortuna.
I really like that American angle of second run after a layoff as well. Like Porta Fortuna they've both had 4 runs, but Porta Fortuna was kept going in the summer and effectively was just beating inferior horses. Now, don't get me wrong, she's a very, very talented filly. I'm a big fan of Porta Fortuna, but Remachuel was given a break. She comes back, she wins on Arc Weekend. The ground was horrible, it didn't matter. She's beaten the boys, she's thrashed them, and this fast surface, fast mile is going to be absolutely tailor-made for her. I think she's a scumbag each way bet to nothing here from a nice draw too. This is her time, and given the weight allowance as well, it's got to be Remachuel for me.
Yeah. Well, that's how I look at it as well. Obviously, notable speech worries me because I do think if he turns up with his best, he's going to be awfully hard to beat. But again, for the reasons I've listed about travelling over there to big crowd, if you're backing notable speech, I'd really leave it to late in the piece. I'd want to have a look at him in the paddock. Hopefully, with all the coverage we get these days, I'm sure, given that he's likely to go off favourite, I'm sure at some point the cameras will be on him, having a good look at him, and just make sure that he's nice and relaxed.
Yeah, whether you're watching Sky Sports Racing or Racing TV, the coverage will be unbelievable. That American coverage is absolutely spectacular.
It is.
They're different gravy. They really are. Speaking of America, should we send out a search party for poor Paul? Is he okay? Yeah. Has he been arrested?
Well, I'd be a little bit concerned, but if we're going to bide a bit of time, can I just go back to the Dirt Classic in City of Troy for a moment?
Yeah, of course.
For Paul to turn up. I did find it really interesting that Jerry Bailey, who'd been waxing lyrical about City of Troy before he went over there, he had a look at him in the morning and he sort of reported back, said, look, he's a good-looking horse, but he doesn't look like a dirt horse to me. He said, I went down to have a look and I didn't see what I wanted to see. He said, I really want him to win the race and I've got a lot of time for the horse. But Jerry Bailey said to him, he doesn't look like a dirt horse. And we're talking about Jerry Bailey here. You know, Jerry Bailey's forgotten more about American racing than most people will ever learn in a lifetime. So that would be a little bit of a concern for me as well. I know it's only one opinion, but by goodness, it's a very educated opinion.
He's alive! He's okay!
Can you hear me all right, Emmet? Yeah.
Oh, thank God he's all right.
It's a disaster, honestly. So I went to another part of the grandstand, and it's all this morning dew, so the laptop packed in. Then I went in the press room, and it's like if there's a million people in there talking. So I'm now at the far side of the grandstand, and I'm on a very wet desk. So the notes are all over the place.
Oh no!
Looks like Chinese chip shop here. But where are we up to?
We're at the Breeders' Cup Mile. I'll give you a second to compose yourself as you deal with the nasty security.
I've got some. I know. I didn't call them a jobs worth. I was gonna. I must admit, a few years ago, when I got a mouthful, but I thought I won't do it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Obviously, the 3-year-olds in the mile. I slightly favoured Notable Speech. I think it's been trained for the race. You can ignore its last run in the soft. And the only thing slightly I don't know about it, he's never been left-handed, has he? He's only been right-handed and run on the straightaway. I've got nothing against and Ramba to the second and third from the 1,000 guineas. Obviously, Porta Fortuna has run well at the Breeders' Cup before. That was a really deep race, that, because she was second, and the third's the best 3-year-old turf filly in America. So that's worked out really well. So I slightly favoured Notable Speech, but I'm not saying anything that anyone can't get from Odds Checker or any other comparison site.
Yeah, it's look, I think it's fair. I think this is a super competitive race. We didn't even mention Diego Velasquez, by the way, who's been sent over by the Aidan O'Brien team. Pop quiz, hot shot. How many times has Aidan O'Brien won the Breeders' Cup Mile?
Not many.
I don't think he has.
It's not a race that's had a lot of success in, is it?
Once. He shot the lights out. He got the trifecta in 2020, Order of Australia.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I guarantee, if I hadn't read that the other day, I would have said, 3 times? It just would have been in, because of course, Rocket Gibraltar went so close. Of course he went. No, it was once.
It started off with Rocket Gibraltar, didn't it?
Yeah. Man, that was sick. And the thing is, if Canaan had moved earlier, he would have been taken out by his own stable companion, poor old Landseer. So it was right that he didn't go when he did. But look, Diego Velasquez is super talented and improving. He's bred to go really well in the Breeders' Cup. His brother Broome, over further in the turf, was second. He's more of a miler, but I don't know if he's going to have the tactical speed that Ramatuel and Notable Speech have. It's a fascinating race, whoever you're with. Just on what Tim was saying about Jerry Bailey passing on that remark about City of Troy perhaps not being suited by the dirt, I feel compelled to tell you that Mike Welch, who's somebody who I know the racing industry regards very, very highly, and I certainly do. I think the guy does phenomenal work for a daily racing forum, doing the clock watching and telling you what's going on in the workouts. His opinion is that City of Troy looks like a horse who really wants dirt. And that's the polite way he's putting it. Sorry, really wants turf. Really wants turf.
Well, you know what Jerry said? It was really interesting. He said he wasn't being negative about the horse. He said, but he looks far more feminine than what he would have expected.
Wow. Okay.
That was the word he used. And I said, look, Jerry, you know, we all of us here follow American racing and like to think we know a thing or two, but my goodness, Jerry, I mean, you know, he's he would be an authority, and if he's thinking that, well, that would concern me for backers, especially if you're rowing in at 7 to 4, whatever price he is at the moment.
Is Jerry Bailey trying to restart this old City of Troy small, and he hasn't trained on nonsense again? Stand into him, Jerry. Stand into him.
No. Well, the thing is, Jerry, maybe he's trying to get a price for himself because he was actually waxing lyrical about the horse, about him coming up, about his ability. And he said, he was just being honest. He said, but when I went and had a look, although I like what I see, if you're looking at a racehorse for turf, I don't like what I'm looking at for a dirt horse. He said, he just doesn't look like a dirt horse.
Yeah, it's so interesting watching Michelle Wu, who's brilliant, absolutely fantastic on the Breeders' Cup coverage. But she was saying, oh, he loves the dirt. Look at how he's moving. And then Mike Welch writes that report saying he's moving like a horse who really prefers turf. So
he's got a lovely big stride, you know, and I like that, especially in a dirt horse. But I think he's got the right run style. You know, he's a pace horse. But I don't know. There's, we can say he's by Justify, but have a look at the Japanese horse that came over here. He goes around in Ireland in the Champion Stakes, good renewal of the race. It normally is a strong renewal, and he runs an absolute blinder, maybe a tad unlucky. And then he goes to the Arc, I'm really testing ground, and people saying, "Oh yeah, but he's got a European pedigree," and they're right. He's got a pedigree that would suggest he would go.
His brother won on heavy.
He's never been on it. He goes on it, and he doesn't go a lick.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can talk about pedigrees all you like, but you got to remember horses are trained. They're sort of built to a set thing, and it didn't surprise me the Japanese horse didn't go on the wet. Now, look, so you think he'd never been on dirt. I know he was beaten in this race, but he pulled his head off and he was only beaten 3 lengths. So a horse can go on it and turn up, and we've seen European horses for the first time go on it and win. But we're talking about the Breeders' Cup Classic. I mean, from a weight for age perspective, as far as the older horses go, like the 3-year-olds meeting the older horses, this is the number 1 race in America. We're not talking about some weak Group 1 that's restricted. This is a serious race. So, like you guys say, I'd love to see it. I really would, and I think it would be just reward because they've been so brave and game in taking this route with him. But it's 7-4. I mean, come on. I've seen a lot better, propositions at that sort of price, put it that way.
Yeah, and even the Shin Emperor analogy is a really good one because his brother Sotsas wins the Arc. He wins on heavy ground. The assumption then is made by people, oh, well, he'll obviously handle it too, despite the fact that he never raced on it. And he'd gone from 20s into 7s into 6s. The value was all gone, and he hated it. But at least you were getting 6-1 about him in the Arc. You're being asked to take 7-4 about COT. I can't help but notice the poll has just been taken out again. Hopefully he will survive. This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp Therapy Online. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you've no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you've ever been in therapy, then like me, you know how beneficial it can be. But it's not just for those who've experienced major trauma. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and setting boundaries. Therapy empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a registered therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. With almost 5,000 therapists in the UK already, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise. Visit betterhelp.com/furlong today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/furlong. This is a paid advertisement by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/furlong to get 10% off your first month and get on your way to being your best self. Let's move on to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, the Grade 1 over 5 furlongs. We have arguably the fastest racehorse in the world in Cogburn. Certainly Luke Elder from Sky Sports Racing was telling me last week on TalkSport 2 that they were having to check the clocks. Well, that's obviously broken. He can't have done it in under a minute. Oh, he did. He is super fast. But the margin for error is very, very slim here, Tim Carroll. And do you want to be taking 5-4?
I do. I think he's nearly the map of the meeting, which probably isn't overly brave given that he's so short. Although I think he's going to go off pretty short in America. I think he'll do a little bit better over here. He's got a unique profile. He used to go around on the dirt, and that was so-so. As soon as they switched him to the turf, he was just completely different proposition. In fact, his only beat on the turf is at Kentucky Downs, and Kentucky Downs is a really unique track. Some horses take to it, some don't. So I'm prepared to forgive that. He's very quick. He'll jump from the 9. He'll look to lead. But to be fair, he can beat both ends as well. So the other thing I will mention too, when we talk about the turf races, quite often straight away, we think Europeans for obvious reasons, rightfully so. Europeans don't have a good record in this race. Going back to 2008, its inception, we've only had the one winner, which was Glass Slippers, Tom Eaves, that beautiful ride where he threaded the needle and got up and won. And I know that we've got plenty of Europeans here again this year. I don't necessarily think they're overly well drawn either, but I think this fella, I think he could be one of the better turf sprinters, I should say, that we've seen in America for quite some time. I think he might be right up there with the likes of Stormy Liberal, who was a twice winner of this race. So 5-4. I actually saw a little bit of 7-5, but I'd be prepared to take anywhere from even money and above.
Can you talk to me about a Star of Mystery for the Godolphin team? Because technically speaking, she can be classed as an American. She's at Charlie Appleby's satellite yard in the States. She didn't come to the UK. She was a very good 2-year-old. She was really good in Dubai at the start of the season. She's run a big race in the Group 1 and World Cup night. She's been behind Cogburn, so she's got to turn that form around. But she ran a massive race in Saratoga in a Group 3. And then last time out at Keeneland, perhaps things just didn't really fall her way that day. I don't think she needs to improve that much. And she's tempting to me at the price. But it's particularly from that draw too. Am I on to something, or is she one to be nervous of?
Well, I think you've got to respect anything that Charlie sends over. I think purely from a form perspective, I'd very much be with Cogburn. It's funny what you were saying about Cogburn being the quickest horse in the world, and he might be. He is lightning, but he can burn at both ends. But I would suggest at the moment, I include, I'll flag the Australian. I'll fly the Australian flag. I include the Australian horses in this. I think he's right up there with the best sprinters in the world at the moment on turf. The best sprinter in the world, by the way, mark my words, I've said this on Twitter, and the world just doesn't know it yet, but a horse by the name of Kaying Rising.
The Hong Kong horse.
Yeah, look, I won't go down that route at the moment, but I just want to throw him up there because the trainer, David Hayes, has travelled many horses. He's won a Japan Cup. He's been to Royal Ascot. In Hong Kong, it's always completely up to the owner, and we know that they've got big prize money over there. So it's difficult to draw them away from that. But I'm just kind of hoping, if not next year, maybe the year after, we might see him somewhere like Royal Ascot. But anyway, look, I'm going off piste a little bit. But yeah, getting back to Cogburn, we can talk about Star of Mystery and a few others, but for mine, they just don't bring the profile that he's got. He's very, very quick. To me, he's a bit bomb-proof. He'll come out, he will go quick, but he does find at the end of his races as well. And he'll jump from the 9, like I said, he'll lead. And I just don't think they'll run him down. I really don't. Okay.
I'm interested in Star of Mystery, and I don't think I can. You've done your best to talk me out of it, and it's my fault for backing her. But look, maybe she goes and does it, in which case I'll be delighted.
Well, you've got to be price sensitive too. If she's at the right price and you're going back her each way, why not? I mean, sometimes a 20-1 poke that runs second or third is better than a 2's on shot that wins.
Exactly. And to be honest, I think she represents a fair bit of value, and she doesn't need to improve that much to be able to hit the board. She does need to improve to beat Cogburn.
She was runner-up to California Spangle, wasn't she, in the Alquas? Yeah, I mean, that's a good effort. California Spangle's an interesting horse because the poor boy, he's one of these horses that's stuck between 6 furlongs and a mile. If you wanted his absolute best trip, it's probably 7 furlongs. He's a bit vulnerable to the closes over a mile, and over 6 furlongs. He's one of these horses. He's actually a bit one pace, but again, he's a little bit vulnerable over the 6 furlongs, those horses that can sit and sprint a bit. But that's a very nice performance to run second to him, because whilst I wouldn't have him at the very, very top of the list of horses in the world, he's certainly a world-class horse, as he proved in Dubai.
Should we mention Believing? She's got stall 1. She was completely snookered by the draw at York. She was snookered by the draw again at the Curragh. She was Billy Loughnane's a great jockey, but I think you might want that ride back, son, on Arc Day. Maybe that's hypercritical of me, but this is the fine margins we're dealing with. She does get the draw, and she gets Ryan Moore again.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I think in the Abbey, that is a race that pans out in a way that can make riders look very ordinary. It's a tough race. A lot of time, sure, you'll see bad rides, but a lot of times in the Abbey, you just see a lot of, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not sure about the draw in 1. What do you make of the draw? I don't know if that's the best draw. I think they want to be drawn a bit higher.
Yeah, Howard was making the point from the Triple H podcast that you want to be low, but you don't want to be too low.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. So for that reason, I'd be prepared to take Believing on. But Ryan Moore in the plate, you're going to get plenty of help from the saddle if you're backing Believing. But I really don't like the draw. It's
funnily enough, the Brisnet form guide specifically says post position 1 has a poor win percentage. So forget it. But she gets blinkers. She gets Ryan Moore. Maybe she can outrun her odds. It's going to be a Star of Mystery for me. I can't help but notice that Paul is in a different background. Now, I'm hoping this is the press room and not like some elaborate police Gestapo station where they've put you under lock and key.
I'm under the grandstand now. If you just turn around, the bar is open, so I'll be saying goodbye in a minute. So,
mine's a pint of bummers, please.
Yeah. Just are we on the
Turf sprint?
Turf sprint.
Yeah.
So still on that, yeah. I had there's a random stat from Ed De Rosa. I think he works for.
I think Paul's gone again.
No, we can hear him.
Gone.
Am I there? Yeah, I've got you. I've got you.
That horses who last raced at Kentucky Downs are 0 for 32.
Damn.
But I will tell you that the standard of racing there has improved over the last 2 or 3 years. So the earlier races at Kentucky Downs, the personal, they're $1 million races there now. So I wouldn't go too much on that stat. It's just a random stat, but they're 0 for 100 if they've raced there in the season, and 0 for 32 if they won at the last start there. But I think it's just a random stat. I don't particularly like stats like that.
Oh, well, that would be enough, though. When we're talking about a 5-4 favourite, that's enough to make me go, okay, Cockburn, you can go and win this race if you do. But that's enough to make me go, I'll look elsewhere. Thank you.
I'm not particularly sold on Cockburn, but I don't fancy anything strong against it. I might back a couple of closers in the race. Motorious is supposed to be 1,000 years of age, but is a course specialist. Big Invasion, who was third in the race last year, and Arzak. But again, the favourite is the right favourite. It's just a question of how short you want to back these horses. I don't really want, probably if you talked about Bradsill and Believing, maybe that race at the Prevagen might have left its mark on those two.
Yeah, that's another point to make as well. That was a pretty hard race that day and on awful ground as well. Look, I'm hoping second run after a layoff for Charlie Appleby is going to bring about more improvement for Star of Mystery, and we've got William Buick on our side as well. So like I'm gonna take a spin at her at 12-1. Am I right about that? Is she 12s with Jeff Banks? She's 14-1. Challenge accepted, yeah. Jeff. Thank you very, very much. To the launch.
They finished third to Coburn, didn't it?
Yeah.
In its first start in America, and then it was won its last two.
Yeah.
Or almost won its last two. Yeah.
Yeah, I like her. I think she's got a big chance in this race. I really like her, actually. Okay, let's move on to the Breeders' Cup. Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. Torpedo Anna, long odds-on favourite after the withdrawal of Idiomatic. I think the Jumpmount horse would have taken a lot of beating in this race, but in her absence, is she a good thing, Paul?
Yeah, she's by far the best 3-year-old filly in America, and obviously ran well against the Colts in the Travers. So there's nothing not to like a bit. If she hadn't got beaten closely by Fierceness, she'd be 6-6 this year. I have one slight question mark about her, and that is her last run at Philadelphia Park when she was a penalty kick. And Ken McPeak sort of said that he left something to work on, but there is a chance that she had a hard season, she's coming to the end of a tether. So that's a slight doubt for me about her, but it's really hard to oppose her. And she's got speed. There's no speed in this race at all. So she might even be on the lead.
Okay. Are you with or against Torpedo Anna, Tim Carroll?
Just so you know, Emmet, I can hear you clearly. I can't hear Paul at all at the moment. So just so you're aware. I'm very much with Torpedo Anna. Look, it's a non-betting affair for mine. I'm not going to be backing her. She's going to be going off with it. But she's a wonderful filly. She's won 4 Grade 1s this year. Her only defeat when she pushed Fierce all the way in the Travis. She only just got there in the Cotillion last time out, but that's a little bit of a sort of bogey race sometimes. And Kenny McPeak actually, it probably came a bit soon for her after the Travis. I think it was only 4 weeks later, and he'd taken it fairly easy on her, so she probably went in that race a little bit on the soft side. But she's a wonderful filly. I think she'll be winning the Distaff, but it's a watch and enjoy breeders' race for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But hey, if you want to put her into the multiples and take some of Jeff Banks' money, then we're not going to stop you. Absolutely. And who knows? If the alcohol is flying after Lake Victoria wins on Friday night, might do the same thing myself. Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. We will race to. Howard was unbelievably bullish about Ways and Means. The bet of the week, he was saying. And as we get closer to the race, and I absolutely love Howard and the Triple H podcast, do support it. It charted in Ireland, which is great to see. I don't know. I'm starting to get a little bit lukewarm, unless the two boys are going to come in and tell me that she's a good thing. Paul, what do you think? The Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint is Ways and Means away and gone.
she certainly probably is the one to beat. She's much improved since Chad Brown cut her back from one to one turn races. And I wouldn't knock anyone to about. What is she, about 2 to 1, something like that? 9 or 4? Is she?
Yeah, she's 9 to 4 here.
Yeah. But there are alternatives. The Society, Scylla, and Vava, 1, 2, 3 in the ballerina. Vava a bit disappointing that day. Can fancy her off her Churchill form when she beat Society. I think I would certainly probably just about prefer to back her at maybe twice the price. Stick Ways and Means in the forecast though. So, but I've nothing against Ways and Means at all. And Chad is an expert with these. Was expert on all distances, but certainly good with this race. Good Night Olive, was it last year? Was the favourite?
That's right.
So yeah. So I won't put anyone off Ways and Means at all. I just at the prices will back Vava Voom.
What do you make of Soul of an Angel? She was second to Idiomatic in the Grade 3 in July. She would have been favourite for the Distaff had she not gotten injured. RPR of 119 that day. I don't know if you want to rely on the RPRs instead of buyers. But good winner, dropped to this trip last time out. Little bit to find, but...
Yeah, there are different ways to go in the race. I say there's not many horses in this race that I'd say you can't win, but I say I'm sticking with Vava, and I certainly put your Ways and Means in the forecast.
Okay, Tim, for you,
I'm going to have a little bit of a stab at Vava here. I know she was a beaten favourite last time out in the ballerina behind Society, maybe a little bit disappointing that day, and probably worth pointing out. And I don't think it was weight that beat her that day, but she is on £5 better terms here. But she had finished well in front of Society at the start prior at Churchill Down. She's got a very good record over this trip. They've purposely kept her on the fresh side because she does tend to run her best off a short layoff. We haven't seen her since late August. The one knock is probably the fact that we haven't seen her on the West Coast, but her works at Keeneland would suggest that she's in really good shape for this. So it's not a big race for mine, but Vava at around about that 9 to 2 would be a bit of a play here for me.
Vava Voom for the two boys.
Great minds, then.
Yeah, absolutely. For the filly and Mare sprint. If Ways and Means goes and does it, that's great. We've got that covered already. But if Vava goes and does it, even better. And we might even get the exacta up as well. Trifectas.
Probably. Do you pronounce it Scylla? As opposed to, I think that she's the one I'd be interested in the for the trifecta. She'll be running on late.
Okay, so Vava, Ways and Means, and Scylla. For the Judmont team, there's your trifecta. Society, I know, is going to be talked up, but she's been beaten at the last 2 Breeders' Cups and maybe a horse to take on. That brings us to the Juvenile. So we'll switch to the Friday night. I think this is Tim's last race before he heads off for a shift on Sky Sports Racing. So, Tim, I'll start with you. FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile, presented by the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. I was really impressed with East Avenue. I was watching that race live. Your colleague Tom Collins was very taken with him as well. He's not going for him, though. He's going for, I think, Chancellor McPatrick from the top of my memory. I know he's been sparkling in his work. He's a Godolphin horse. There's a lot to like about him, but this is a deep, deep Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Yeah, look, I had to write an article at the races, and one of my top 3 bets for the meeting was Chancellor McPatrick. Now, I should kind of point out when I wrote that article, at the time, I think he was an 11 to 2 poke, and the favourite was at 5 to 2. The favourite, of course, being East Avenue. Now, I think they're both 2 very, very good colts, but at 11 to 2, I had to be all over Chancellor McPatrick. However, that has actually tightened up between the pair now to a more realistic 5 to 2 and 3 to 1. I sort of said in that article for mine, he's definitely 2 points shorter. He's from the Chad Brown yard. He's won all 3 starts. He kind of looks like one right out of the box. Now, by that, I mean, he's very intelligent. When you watch him run, if you didn't know he was a 2-year-old, you'd think he was an old stager that had been around a racetrack 30 or 40 times. He's a stretch runner. By that, I mean, he's a closer. So he'll be in the second half of the field, but he just knows his job so well. And these sort of races, these juvenile races, they're normally run at a good bat. And I really think that will suit him here. He should get a strong gallop to aim at. Chancellor McPatrick would be my idea of the winner here. And whilst I won't be going too silly, he's probably one of my strongest sort of bets of the meeting.
Damn, Tim. I was not expecting that. Who would you be putting in the exacta trifecta with him?
The obvious one is East Avenue. He's drawn in one. He'll sit in front, and most of them will, but he'll sit in front of Chance McPatrick, and he's got a very nice profile. He's a very good-looking juvenile as well. He'd be the one that worries me the most. I know we're talking the second favourite into the favourite, but you can only call it the way you see it.
So you're saying this is one of your best bets of the meeting?
He'd probably be on my second line, yeah. He'd probably be my next best, if you like, because I do like Cogburn in the sprint, but I just think he's got the right profile. I think he does everything right. The other thing is you get 2-year-olds at this stage of year that might have all the ability in the world, but they're still a little bit green. They're still a little bit all over the place. This guy already looks like a sort of finished article, not as far as he's ceiling, but everything he does is just so professional. And the way this race will be run, it'll be run quickly. Okay, he might need a little bit of luck because he's going to be looking to close out late, but, gee, he's got a big finish on him and he picks up so nicely. I just think... Dare I say, to use that old adage, I just think he ticks all the boxes.
All right, Breeders' Cup Juvenile for Chancer McPatrick. Big team for the big occasion with Flavian Pratt and Chad Brown as well. Paul, are you with Tim Carroll here with Chancer McPatrick?
I think at the prices, you still can make a case that that is the right way to go because he's a bigger price than East Avenue. Interestingly, if you look at from UK and Irish terms, they both ran against Ferocious, didn't they? And East Avenue beat him further. But I won't go too much into that. The knock on the Chancer is he going to be just a late running 7 furlong miler type of horse? But he probably will get a strong pace in this race. I think the 2 or 3 might take East Avenue on. Again, I don't think it's a 2-horse race. I think the Baffert horse is interesting. Gaming hasn't ran since Del Mar in September. Has been kept fresh for this. As my screen just went completely dead. And the other one I want to mention was Jonathan's Way. He was 2 for 2. Made all last time when he won stake at Churchill, but did win from off the pace at Saratoga. So again, it's a race where you can make a case for others in the race. I don't think it's a match as the betting may make it. What about the Irish horse as well? Bred for Dirt. Not sure it's the class. Hill Road.
Yeah, Bred for the Dirt. I'd be amazed if he was good enough. I presume they're relocating him to America and they're just going to give him the shot.
Yeah, that's what I think. It might be a bit of a vanity play, but with the owners. But unless the regulars on your podcast, Emmet, and the great owners, if that's the case.
No, he's a regular on Nick Luck's show, but Kia has not been on the Final Furlong, so we can say whatever we want.
Lucky pays the big bucks, that's why.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Listen, the guy's burning through trainers, burning through jockeys, but hey, he's spending £19 million of the sales, so everybody's supposed to be on board and just say what a great guy he is. All right. Yeah. Good luck to him, I say. What is that Donald Trump thing? I wish him well. Fair play. By the way, that's not an endorsement in case anyone's losing their minds. I got news for you. They're both horrible candidates. Absolute chaos will ensue no matter which of the two of them wins. Jesus. I think this is a really, really deep race. It's a fascinating one. I'm interested in Chancer McPatrick. I was very interested in East Avenue. I'm coming around more to your thinking. It's just a bit bizarre to see a Breeders' Cup Juvenile where Bob Baffett doesn't have a red-hot favourite and that Gaming has been sent off such a big price. I think I've got to play him in an exotic with Chancer McPatrick, but I've got a lot of respect for East Avenue. Tim, I know you've got to get to Sky Sports Racing. What is your best bet of the Breeders' Cup?
I'm going to be really boring and say Cogburn, but I'd quite happily play him in the Chancer McPatrick in the Juvenile to create a little bit of value.
Okay. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure as always. I hope we get to talk to you again soon. Maybe we'll break down some of the Racing Victoria decisions, but we'll do that on another episode of the show.
Bring it on. Let's do this.
Tim Carroll, a pleasure as always, my friend. Really appreciate your insight, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Paul and I will wrap up some of the other races just very, very briefly. Just very quickly on the juvenile fillies. Immersive, strong favourite for the Godolphin team. Scottish Lassie has been well backed in recent days as well on this side of the pond, as well as I know that she's going to be very prominent in the morning line betting as well. And the Japanese runner with Ryan Moore booked, American Bikini, looks a fascinating one too. Yeah, and the one I would have gone for is out, I think, non-compliance. It was a bit ironic for a horse trained by Bob Pryor, non-compliant Bob Baffett, but that's enough about Bob Baffett. So again, Scottish Lassie, it's hard. That looked a freakish effort in the Frisettes. Second time out, won that as a maiden. But if the figure's right, she wins.
Immersive looks more credible in a sense of form, but may have less talents. And who knows about the Japanese horse? I honestly don't know. I should ask some of the press here. There's about 1 million of them here. If they have a winner, it'll be fantastic.
Yeah,
They might win the last race. Not actually, it's not the last race of sprint anymore. But I think they've got a decent chance in the sprints if they don't win with what their other. Is it they've got 19 or they've got 12? I can't remember. Got a lot of horses.
Oh, there was initially supposed to be 20, and a couple of them have come out, but it's a massive team they're sending over there. Just very briefly on their horse in the sprint, do you want to elaborate on that?
Just in the sprint, which, just going down to my notes, I'm against Federal Judge there. He rode the rail and the bias at Keeneland last time out, and I think Nakatomi could reverse the form. But there is a lot of speed in this race, and I might take a chance on the Japanese-trained Remake, who won a stake in Korea's, won a stake in Saudi, well-travelled, can start a little bit slowly, but will be flying. I'm going to probably back him. I'll probably have a little bit on Nakatomi and a little bit on Gun Pilot, who was another deep closer. But I'm sure there's too much speed in this race for a closer not to win.
Okay,
so Remake for me for Japan.
Almost everybody I've spoken to has been telling me Nakatomi is a good thing, which means it's not a good thing if everybody's saying it. But is 10-1 on this side of the pond? If you can believe that I can't believe that.
After people here, I wouldn't say no. So there's a woman behind the bar. I'd rather listen to her. Well, probably because she'll serve me a drink. But there's a big truck going past now, so you're going to get some more noise.
Tasty, excellent stuff. Yeah. It's great that Delmar are really helping us out with the production of this show by just throwing so many.
You can't get in the press room. There's that many people in it. So all the photographers are there on foot.
I would just say that very briefly on Nakatomi, I think he's 2-1 morning line in stateside, and those Americans are very happy to take that 2-1. Yeah. You're getting 5s here, so if you do like him, I don't think you'll be getting 5s on the day. Let's go to a horse that I think is going to be shorter than she is right now. With Jeff Banks bet is currently going to confirm 11-10 Lake Victoria. We're getting odds against about Aidan O'Brien's Superstar filly. This is the best juvenile, I think, that has been sent from Europe to the Breeders' Cup since Johannesburg. Surely she wins, Paul.
She does. I mean, you can argue that she's never been further than 7 furlongs. She's never been round a bend, and she's gone around 2 bends here. But I mean, her half brother was second in the Melrose Handicap over 1 mile and 6. So I don't think the distance is going to be a problem. Tim's probably right that if you miss the break from the one hole, you could be curtains for her. But I think for a class point of view, she's also an absolute standout. I want to mention the Chad Brown horse, because he normally wins this race. He's won 6. The Miss Grillo at Aqueduct, 6 of the last 16 winners will come out of that race. It's not worked out. This year was a funny race because 2 horses got taken out of the home turn when the horse ran out. Siding won it, but Chad's Virginia Collider was second. She doesn't look anything up as good as Lake Victoria on class, but it is Chad, and he does win that race. He won it more than Aiden's won it. I think he's won 6. So yeah, the best of the Americans is thought process. He won a Grade 3 at Santa Rita last time, and he's 2 for 2 over course and distance.
Yeah, Aiden's only won this race once. That was a Meditate, but I think the standard of horse he's been sending to the races is slightly lower, and I'm amazed. I am so surprised that Lake Victoria is going for this race. Pleasantly surprised. I'm delighted they're going to send her over there. And look, it worked wonders for Porter Fortuna.
Exactly. I was going to say exactly the same thing. But nothing wrong coming for this race. It doesn't affect your 3-year-old campaign at all.
Yeah, exactly. There was certainly a thought process that it did before, but Dunnick has proved that it's not. Meditate didn't train on, but she was a different type of horse. She was always going to be a 2-year-old. Lake Victoria is going to be a proper classic performer, and she will learn an awful lot from this. And then this brings us to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, which the quote from Aidan O'Brien on the show, we want to do a little montage of it, or just play it out as a sweeper. We're bringing him to America because we hope it'll knock some of that nonsense out of Henri Matisse, who is undoubtedly the most talented horse in the race, but he does have a lot of nonsense in him. He threw away the Group 1 Vincent O'Brien National Stakes. He almost threw away the race before that, the Futurity, the Group 2, and then the last day the wheels just didn't spin and he got bumped beforehand. Aidan was saying he got frightened that day, but look at the form, Paul. He's beaten hot as hell, fair and square. He's come out and won a Group 2 and the final Group 1 of the season. Surely Henri Matisse has a major class edge here.
Yeah, Exactly right. He has got a class edge. He hasn't got a great draw. He might not have a great attitude. He's got the blinkers off. The trouble is, if you go against him, you're backing someone with less class, aren't you? So it's difficult. The two that ran at Woodbine, New Century reversed his decision with Al Quadra in the Grade 1 Summer Stakes. That's worked out to be a productive race. I think two horses have come back and won out of that race. I would have gone for Al Quadra at a price in this race, but William Buick, who seems to know the time of day, goes Mare City, as far as I see, which slightly puts me off. So I'm like you. I'm sort of Henry Matisse or nothing.
I think it has to be Henri Matisse. Look, this is the hit of the bomb scenario again. Yes, he's got the wrong draw, but it's Aidan O'Brien. It's a Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. It's Ryan Moore. Trust the process. Trust the boys. The dam won 2 Group 1s over a mile. The trip will be no problem to him. It'll bring about improvement. He surely hits the board, and I think we'll get the sweep. I think he's going to get there and win it. Henri Matisse. Believe. Keep the faith. Paul, who is your best bet and your next best bet for Breeders' Cup 2024?
Well, definitely in the sprint, I'm going to back. I have backed already the Japanese horse, which I've lost completely. It's called Get it? Yeah. Remake. Let's get it. Remake is one of my. I tend to go for horses at prices. I'll be interested in him. I'm definitely going to back Notable Speech. I think they should give a good account for himself. I think it'll get a good position early on. They're the two. As a rule, I tend to always lose on the Juve Future Stars Friday. They call it, don't they?
Yeah.
But it's always been a dim future for me on the Friday. I must admit, I'm better off staying in the hotel, if I'm honest with you. But so there's nothing particularly stand out of those. I've got one I wanted to mention, if I can find in the dirt mile. Mufasa is interesting. It's an ex-Chilean. It's won its last 2 starts over 7 furlong stakes, but did win over 9 furlongs in Chile. And there's a load of front runners in that race. I think he'll just sit off. Mufasa, I think, is interesting at a decent price there. You'll have to catch Saudi Crown, who's a classy type, but say he'll have company on the front end. Domestic Product is probably the one to beat based on sharpness. He's got to stretch out from 1-turn race to 2-turn races. And what's Moof doing in this race with Bob Baffle? Why is he not in the Classic? So I'm slightly worried about Moof running this race. But say Mufasa be a decent price. Ex-Chilean, I think it'll get a nice trip over the mile.
And had a sharp workout on the 27th of October. I love the fact that we get to see that. We get to learn how these horses have been performing in their work as opposed to just having to ring a trainer or hope that somebody asks a trainer how's the horse performing at home. It's the amount of information we get is unbelievable. Paul, I've thoroughly enjoyed your insight on the show. I've enjoyed the crack as well. Yeah.
I'll just show you, it's starting to build up. There's 5 people here now.
Oh, there we go. It's going to be a sold-out crowd. Yeah. It's starting to look like a Kamala Harris rally.
First race is in about, is it an hour and 3/4 or an hour and a half? So I'll be staying for that.
It's kind of pretty wild that there is an undercard, like a support to the supporting main event.
Yeah, I'm surprised they are racing on the Thursday, I must admit.
Yeah.
But, I can't resist it. I've got my, just one sec, goes to the prop bag. Got my daily racing form there for the today's card at Del Mar.
Lovely. Highly recommended, by the way. DRF. Yeah. Excellent stuff, and great stuff with the DRF website too, and their YouTube stuff does some great content too.
Next time I do this, Emmet, I'll try and get decent Wi-Fi coverage. I'll pay for the premium rates.
Yes, please, and we'll have to get you like security, and we'll have to get you like the Nick Luck security team, so that no one's bothering you and that you can do the show from wherever you want.
That's ridiculous. I know. I should have done it for Nick Luck's penthouse.
He's not even joking, by the way.
No.
Oh, dearie me. All right. Paul, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I really appreciated your insight. Check out Paul's work at theraces.com. Some fantastic content there. When is the next article going up?
I'm swapping with Barry. I'm going to do Tuesday. I'd like to do Zia Park if I can. If at the races show it. If not, I'll be doing Mahoning Valley, I think.
Nice. Okay.
Back to the rubbish racing. That's what I'm good at.
You say rubbish racing, but it is the racing that he makes a lot of dough from. This is the man to follow.
You win the same amount on a $5,000 claim when you're doing the stake. A 6-4 shot. Doesn't matter if it's a $5,000 claimer or a grade 1, does it? You pay the same, doesn't it?
I'm pretty sure that's the logic that the Take a Pull boys use, Declan Carroll and the boys, which, by the way, I love that logic. A winner in Clonmel plays the same as a winner in Cheltenham.
Exactly. And when I go to this bar in a minute for a pint of lager, they won't say, I hope it's not with that Mahoning Valley money.
It's a deserved drink for you at this stage. Paul, thanks so much for joining us on the Final Furlong podcast. Please, God, we'll talk to you again very, very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Check out Paul's work on attheraces.com. And, of course, you'll be hearing more from him for the Breeders' Cup as well. I'm all over Ramatuel for the Breeders' Cup mile. I think she's going to go super close. And the more I look at Luxembourg and the turf, the more I think he is the one to be with. Lake Victoria will win the Juvenile Fillies turf. Henri Matisse is a standout in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Is this becoming a little bit too Aidan O'Brien-like? Then the shock is to say, next in the Breeders' Cup Classic. 66-1 with one firm, 33s with Jeff Banks as we're recording. I don't know, maybe I've bumped my head, lost my mind, but oh my goodness, they've changed. They've cut them to 16s. They're on to us. They know. Hopefully, Next can run a massive race in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Whoever you are with, whoever you're backing, I really appreciate you joining us on the Final Furlong podcast. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so now. And make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. We've got more content coming your way on the Final Furlong podcast very, very soon. Enjoy the Breeders' Cup. Enjoy the content. Enjoy the racing. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk to you again very, very soon. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Jeff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Jeff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at jeffbanks.bet and buy BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Our listeners get 10% off your first month. So give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/FURLONG.